Welcome to the Life Paradox, where reality is stranger than fiction. Ellie Mason had always imagined her wedding day would be perfect. The late May sunshine streamed through the stained glass windows of Willow Creek Chapel, casting prisms of colored light across her ivory gown. She stood in the small antechamber, heart fluttering beneath layers of silk and lace, while her mother fussed with the cathedral-length veil. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," her mother whispered, eyes glistening. Like something from a dream. Ellie smiled, but the tension in her shoulders remained. The past 6 months of planning had been exhausting. Venue negotiations, family politics, and Brian's increasing aloofness. Her fiancé had grown distant as the wedding approached, attributing his behavior to work stress. Ellie had chosen to believe him. 5 minutes, announced the wedding coordinator, popping her head through the doorway before disappearing again. Ellie's bridesmaids gathered around her in a flutter of sage-green dresses, their excitement palpable. Her best friend Maya squeezed her hand. "Ready to marry the love of your life?" Before Ellie could answer, her phone buzzed with a text message. Normally, she would have ignored it, but something, intuition perhaps, made her reach for the device. Unknown. Number. "I'm sorry to do this today of all days, but you deserve to know the truth about Brian before you marry him. Check your email. Now." Ellie's stomach clenched. She glanced up at her friends, their faces blurring slightly as adrenaline coursed through her veins. "I need a minute," she murmured, fingers already opening her email app. The subject line made her blood run cold. "What Brian has been hiding." The email contained several screenshots of text conversations between Brian and someone named Lindsay, spanning the past 8 months. The messages were explicit, affectionate, filled with plans and promises. The final screenshot showed a bank transfer receipt, a down payment on an apartment, dated 3 weeks ago. "Ellie? They're ready for us to line up," Maya said, then froze when she saw her friend's face. "What's wrong?" Ellie handed Maya the phone wordlessly, her mind racing through memories with new clarity. The late nights at work, the weekends away for team-building retreats, the sudden password changes on his devices. Every suspicious moment she had rationalized away now aligned into a devastating picture. "Oh my God," Maya whispered, scrolling through the evidence. "Ellie, I'm so sorry." But Ellie was already moving, gathering her skirts in trembling hands. A strange calm descended over her. 200 guests waited beyond those doors. Both families had traveled from across the country. Thousands of dollars had been spent. The perfect day she had meticulously planned was collapsing around her. "What are you going to do?" her mother asked, alarmed by the determination in her daughter's eyes. Ellie took a deep breath. "I'm going to walk down that aisle." "But, trust me," Ellie said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I need to do this my way." As the first notes of the wedding march began, Ellie's father appeared, offering his arm. She took it, squeezing perhaps too tightly. "You okay, Pumpkin?" he asked, concern etching his weathered face. Ellie nodded, unable to speak the truth. As they approached the chapel doors, she caught sight of Brian waiting at the altar, his smile practiced and perfect. He looked handsome in his tuxedo, completely at ease, a man with no conscience about the double life he'd been leading. The doors swung open. All eyes turned toward the bride. Ellie took her first step down the aisle, each footfall bringing her closer to a confrontation that would change everything. The wedding march seemed to slow as Ellie processed down the aisle. Each step became deliberate, her father's arm the only thing keeping her upright. Faces turned to watch her, smiling with teary eyes, completely unaware of the storm brewing, beneath her composed exterior. Ellie registered details with unusual clarity, Aunt Patricia dabbing her eyes with an embroidered handkerchief, Brian's college friends nudging each other appreciatively, her young cousin fidgeting in an uncomfortable suit. And Brian, waiting at the altar with that self-assured smile she once found charming, now it looked smug, the expression of a man who believed he had successfully compartmentalized his life into convenient boxes. Halfway down the aisle, Ellie faltered. Her father sensed the change and glanced sideways. "Just nerves," she whispered. Automatically, a lifetime of social conditioning making her minimize her distress. But inside, her thoughts raced wildly. She could still turn around, flee the chapel, avoid the public spectacle that confrontation would create. The text messages and evidence would still be there tomorrow. They could handle this privately, with dignity. But then Brian caught her eye and had the audacity to wink. Something hardened inside Ellie. This man had lied to her face for months while planning a future with someone else. He had watched her agonize over wedding details while secretly making down payments on an apartment with another woman. The weight of that betrayal propelled her forward. When she reached the altar, her father kissed her cheek and placed her hand in Brian's. The gesture felt wrong now, transactional rather than symbolic. Brian's fingers closed around hers, warm and familiar, yet suddenly alien. "You look stunning," he whispered, and Ellie heard the rehearsed quality of the compliment. The minister smiled benevolently at the couple before addressing the congregation. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Brian Thomas and Ellie Mason in holy matrimony." The traditional words washed over Ellie while her mind calculated her next move. She would have to choose her moment carefully. The standard ceremony would soon ask if anyone had reason why this couple should not be joined in marriage, the dramatic moment for objections in movies. But Ellie had no interest in following that cliché. "Marriage is not entered into lightly," the minister continued, "but with careful consideration and respect." Respect. The word echoed in Ellie's mind. Brian squeezed her hand, misinterpreting her tension as emotion. She withdrew her fingers from his grasp. The slight movement caught the minister's attention, causing a brief pause in his recitation. "Before we proceed with the vows, the bride and groom have prepared personal messages for each other." This was not part of their planned ceremony. Ellie's confusion must have shown on her face because the minister added, "Brian requested this. Addition yesterday. He thought it would make the ceremony more meaningful." Brian stepped forward, producing a folded paper from his jacket pocket. His expression was earnest, practiced, the same look he wore during work presentations. "Ellie," he began, voice carrying through the chapel. "From the moment we met 4 years ago, I knew you were special. You've been my rock, my confidant, my best friend. Today, I promise to be faithful to you alone, to cherish you above all others, to build a life of honesty and trust." Each word drove into Ellie like a knife. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. She watched him perform sincerity with skilled precision, aware of their audience hanging on every word. When he finished, wiping a suspiciously well-timed tear, the congregation sighed appreciatively. The minister turned to Ellie expectantly. "And now, Ellie, would you like to share your words for Brian?" The chapel fell silent. 200 people waited. Brian's smile faltered slightly at her hesitation. Ellie took a deep breath. The moment had arrived sooner than she'd expected, but it was perfect in its irony. "Yes," she said clearly. "I have something to say." Ellie pulled her phone from a hidden pocket in her wedding dress, a feature she had specifically requested during alterations, never imagining how crucial it would become. The weight of all eyes in the chapel pressed against her skin as she unlocked the screen with steady fingers. "Ellie," Brian whispered urgently, "what are you doing?" She ignored him, addressing the congregation instead. "I had vows prepared." Her voice carried clearly through the hushed space. Beautiful promises about love and trust and forever. But 20 minutes ago, I received some information that changed everything. A confused murmur rippled through the guests. Brian's parents exchanged worried glances while Ellie's mother half rose from her seat before being gently pulled back down by her husband. Marriage should be built on honesty. Ellie continued, finding strength in speaking the truth. So, before we proceed, I think we should be honest with each other and with everyone who came here to support us today. Brian's face drained of color. Whatever you think you know, I don't think, Brian. I know. Ellie turned to face him fully, blocking out the shocked audience. I know about Lindsay. I know about the apartment you leased together 3 weeks ago. I know about your plans for after our honeymoon. A collective gasp filled the chapel. Brian's best man shifted uncomfortably, eyes fixed on the floor, a telling reaction that confirmed he had known about the affair. Maya moved closer to Ellie, a silent show of support. Brian's expression cycled rapidly through shock, denial, and calculation before settling on damage control. This isn't the place, he hissed. We can talk about this privately. No, Ellie replied simply. You made this public when you decided to stand before our friends and family and lie. When you let my parents spend their retirement savings on this wedding. When you let me believe you were the man you pretended to be. She turned to the minister, whose professional composure was struggling to contain his shock. I apologize for putting you in this position. The elderly man nodded kindly. No apology necessary, my dear. Brian grabbed her elbow, desperation evident in his grip. Ellie, please, you're embarrassing both of us. No, Brian. You embarrassed us when you thought you could maintain 2 relationships indefinitely. She pulled away from him and faced the congregation. I just found out that the man I was about to marry has been living a double life. He's been involved with another woman for 8 months and recently put a down payment on an apartment for them. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by someone in the back rows whispering an emphatic, "Oh my God." Brian's mother stood abruptly. There must be some mistake, she insisted, her voice pitched high with distress. Brian wouldn't. I have proof, Ellie said gently, holding up her phone. Text messages, bank transfers, everything. Brian lunged for the phone, but Maya stepped between them, her petite frame surprisingly immovable. Don't, she warned him, his shoulders slumped in defeat. It wasn't serious, he attempted weakly. Just a fling that got complicated. A bitter laugh escaped Ellie's lips. A fling doesn't involve joint property investments. Movement at the back of the chapel caught everyone's attention. A woman with auburn hair slipped through the doors, uncertainty written across her face. Lindsay. She must have received the same anonymous message Ellie had, or perhaps had been waiting nearby, expecting some different outcome from this day. Their eyes met across the crowded space. 2 women who had unknowingly shared the same man with vastly different understandings of their relationships. In that moment, Ellie felt no hatred toward this stranger, only a profound sense of connection in their mutual betrayal. The atmosphere in the chapel became charged with anticipation. Everyone waited for tears, for accusations, for drama to unfold. But Ellie had moved beyond the initial shock into a strange clarity. This moment, however painful, was offering her an escape from a future built on lies. I'm not going through with this wedding, she announced, her voice steadier than she thought possible. And I have a demand before I leave. The chapel remained suspended in shocked silence as Ellie gathered herself, standing tall despite the crushing weight of public humiliation. Brian's complexion had shifted from ghostly white to mottled red, his carefully constructed facade crumbling with each passing second. A demand, he repeated, voice laced with equal parts panic and indignation. After creating this scene? Ellie met his gaze unflinchingly. Yes, Brian. A demand. She turned to address the congregation, many of whom were now whispering among themselves or awkwardly checking their phones, unsure where to look during this unfolding catastrophe. In the 3rd row, her childhood friend was already typing furiously, undoubtedly sharing this dramatic turn of events with absent friends. I want to apologize to everyone who traveled to be here today, Ellie began. especially those who came from out of town and spent money on flights and hotels. None of you deserve to be drawn into this situation." Several guests nodded appreciatively, at her consideration despite the circumstances. Her grandmother wiped away tears while her grandfather patted her hand comfortingly. "My demand isn't complicated, Brian," Ellie continued, returning her attention to the ashen-faced groom. "I want you to reimburse my parents for every penny they spent on this wedding." Brian blinked rapidly. "What? That's ridiculous." 58. $1,436, Ellie stated precisely. "I kept meticulous records of every expense. My parents took money from their retirement fund to give me, the wedding they thought I deserved. I won't let them lose that because of your deception." From their seats in the front row, her parents exchanged glances. Her father started to rise, likely to protest that the money didn't matter, but her mother placed a restraining hand on his arm. This was Ellie's moment to reclaim her dignity. "You can't seriously expect," Brian began, but Ellie cut him off. "I do expect it. In fact, I demand it." Her voice remained level, controlled. "You make 6 figures at your firm. The apartment? Down payment you made proves you have the funds. You'll transfer the full amount to my parents by the end of next week." The woman at the back of the chapel, Lindsay, had begun edging toward the exit, clearly recognizing she had stumbled into a situation far beyond what she'd anticipated. Brian noticed her movement and made an abortive gesture as if to stop her, confirming any lingering doubts about her identity. "And one more thing," Ellie added. "I keep the rings." A surprised laugh escaped from someone in the congregation, quickly stifled. Brian's jaw worked soundlessly for a moment before he found his voice. "Those rings cost—" "I know exactly what they cost," Ellie interrupted smoothly. "The engagement ring can cover the non-refundable deposits we're about to lose, and I'll sell the wedding bands to reimburse our guests for their travel expenses." Brian's best man whistled softly in reluctant admiration. Even in crisis, Ellie's organizational skills remained impressive. "You've lost your mind," Brian hissed. "You can't legally force me to do any of this." Ellie smiled for the first time since receiving the fateful text. "You're right. I can't legally force you, but everyone here knows what happened today. Your colleagues, your boss, your clients. Word will spread. Your reputation is in your hands now." She glanced meaningfully around the chapel at the witnesses to his humiliation. Several of Brian's business associates shifted uncomfortably in their seats, already reassessing their professional relationship with him. "Your choice is simple," Ellie continued. "Do the right thing and salvage some dignity, or fight me on this, and let everyone know exactly what kind of man you really are." The calculation played out visibly across Brian's face. His career depended on trust and reputation. Fighting Ellie's demands would cost him far more than money in the long run. "Fine," he snapped finally. "You'll get your money." Ellie nodded, once accepting his capitulation without celebration. She turned to Maya, who stood ready at her side. "I think that concludes today's ceremony," Ellie said quietly. "Would you help me out of here?" Maya took her arm supportively. "With pleasure." As Ellie began walking back down the aisle, this time toward freedom rather than false commitment, the guests remained frozen in stunned attention. No one quite knew the protocol for a wedding that imploded so spectacularly. Then, slowly, her elderly grandmother rose to her feet and began to applaud. The applause spread hesitantly at first, then with growing conviction. By the time Ellie reached the chapel doors, most of the guests were standing, their approval washing over her like a cleansing wave. Not celebration. No one could celebrate. Such a painful moment, but acknowledgement of her courage and dignity. In the antechamber where she had prepared so hopefully just an hour before, Ellie finally allowed her composure to crack. Her knees buckled, and Maya guided her to a small velvet bench. "Breathe," Maya instructed, kneeling before her friend. "Just breathe." Ellie's mother burst through the door moments later, followed by her father and two bridesmaids. Without a word, her mother enveloped her in an embrace that conveyed everything words couldn't: sorrow, pride, unwavering support. "I'm so sorry about the money," Ellie whispered against her mother's shoulder. "I'll make sure he pays you back." Her father joined the embrace. "We don't care about the money, sweetheart. We care about you." "I should have seen it," Ellie said, the first tears finally breaking free. "There were signs. I ignored them." "We all did," her mother assured her. "He fooled everyone." Outside the antechamber, they could hear the murmur of dispersing guests, occasional exclamations of shock, and the wedding coordinator's strained voice attempting to maintain order. The carefully orchestrated day had derailed entirely, leaving practical matters in disarray. The reception, Ellie remembered suddenly. All that food is being packaged for guests to take home or donated to the downtown shelter, Maya informed her. "I've already spoken with the caterer." Ellie managed a watery smile. "Of course you have. And your Aunt Diane is handling the gift table, making note of everything so you can return items later." The practicalities provided welcome distraction from the emotional turmoil. Ellie wiped her eyes, leaving streaks of mascara on the back of her hand. "I should change out of this dress." "I brought your clothes from the hotel," one of the bridesmaids offered, holding up a small overnight bag. "The blue sundress and your comfortable sandals." The simple kindness nearly undid Ellie again. While her world collapsed, her friends had thought of practical comforts. As she changed in the small adjoining bathroom, removing the gown that represented so many shattered dreams, Ellie caught sight of herself in the mirror. Her carefully styled hair was coming loose, her makeup tear-streaked, but her eyes held something new, a fierce resilience she hadn't known she possessed. When she emerged in her blue dress, her father was waiting alone. "Most guests have left," he informed her gently. "But there's someone asking to speak with you. That woman—" "Lindsay," Ellie supplied, her stomach clenching. "You don't have to see her," he assured her quickly. "Say the word, and I'll send her away." Ellie considered for a long moment. "No, I'll speak with her." Maya looked concerned. "Are you sure? You've been through enough today." "I'm sure." Ellie straightened her shoulders. "She might be as much a victim here as I am." When Lindsay entered the room minutes later, the tension was palpable. She hovered near the door, twisting her hands nervously. Up close, she appeared younger than Ellie had initially thought, perhaps fresh out of college. "I didn't know," were Lindsay's first words, her voice barely above a whisper. "About the wedding, about you, not until last week. He told me you were his ex, that the wedding was called off months ago, but his family was still pressuring him." The absurdity of Brian's lies might have been comical under different circumstances. Instead, Ellie felt a wave of exhaustion. "When I got that text with the screenshots," Lindsay continued, "showing him calling me his side project while he built a respectable life with you." Her voice broke. "I had to see for myself. I'm so sorry." Ellie studied the younger woman's devastated expression and recognized genuine shock and betrayal that mirrored her own. "It seems we've both had a lucky escape today," Ellie said finally. "Though it doesn't feel lucky yet." Lindsay nodded, wiping at her eyes. "I just wanted you to know I wasn't knowingly part of this, and I admire how you handled it. I don't think I could have been so composed." The unexpected compliment drew a small, genuine smile from Ellie. "Trust me, it wasn't planned. I just knew I couldn't walk away without speaking my truth." After Lindsay left, Maya helped gather Ellie's belongings. The wedding coordinator appeared briefly to express sympathy and confirm that the chapel had been cleared. Brian and his family had departed through a side exit, avoiding further confrontation. "Where to now?" Maya asked softly. Ellie gazed at the chapel doors leading to the outside world. Beyond them lay a future entirely different from the one she had anticipated this morning. "My parents' house," she decided. "Just for tonight. Tomorrow." She paused. the possibilities suddenly dizzying in their uncertainty and freedom. Tomorrow is another day. As they stepped outside, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the chapel grounds. A few lingering guests offered quiet words of support as Ellie passed. The vintage Rolls-Royce that should have carried the newlyweds to their reception waited pointlessly at the curb, white ribbons fluttering in the breeze. Ellie paused, looking back at the picturesque chapel with its climbing roses and stone facade. You know what's strange? Part of me feels relieved. 1 week after the wedding that wasn't, Ellie sat cross-legged on her childhood bed, surrounded by sympathy cards and half-eaten boxes of chocolate. The initial shock had given way to a numbing routine of sleeping too much, mechanically responding to concerned text messages, and fielding phone calls from well-meaning relatives. Her phone chimed with another notification, her 12th thinking of you message that morning. Without looking, she silenced the device and flopped back against the pillows. The ceiling of her old bedroom still bore the glow-in-the-dark stars she had arranged into constellations as a teenager. They had lost their luminescence years ago, but remained familiar companions in her unexpected return to this space. A gentle knock interrupted her thoughts. Her mother appeared in the doorway, holding a steaming mug of tea and a small envelope. "Another card?" Ellie asked, not bothering to sit up. "No, actually, it's a bank notice." Her mother placed both the tea and envelope on the nightstand. "Brian has transferred the full amount we spent on the wedding." This news finally prompted Ellie to rise. "Really? He actually did it?" To the penny. Her mother perched on the edge of the bed. "Your father nearly fell over when he checked the account this morning." Ellie reached for the envelope, examining the printed confirmation statement. The considerable sum represented not just money, but a strange form of closure. Brian's tacit acknowledgement of his wrongdoing. "I didn't think he'd actually follow through," Ellie admitted. "Perhaps he has more conscience than we gave him credit for," her mother suggested, then added with a hint of steel, "or more concern for his professional reputation." They shared a knowing look that dissolved into unexpected laughter, the first genuine mirth Ellie had experienced since the wedding day disaster. "What are you going to do with the money?" Ellie asked once their laughter subsided. "Put it back in our retirement fund, of course." Her mother squeezed her hand. "But that's not what I came to talk about. You've been in this room for a week. The chocolate supply is dwindling dangerously. Perhaps it's time to consider next steps." Ellie sighed, running her fingers through her unwashed hair. "I know, I just need a little more time." "Time you can have. Direction might help too." Her mother reached into her pocket and withdrew a folded newspaper clipping. "Your father found this in today's paper. The Simpson Art Gallery downtown is looking for an event coordinator." Ellie took the clipping skeptically. Before meeting Brian, she had worked in event planning, organizing everything from corporate functions to gallery openings. She had enjoyed the creativity and precision the job required, but had given it up when Brian's career demanded relocating to the suburbs. "I don't know, Mom. Going back to event planning feels like moving backward." "Really?" "Because to me, it sounds like reclaiming something you loved before Brian convinced you his career should take priority." The gentle accusation struck home. Ellie read the job listing more carefully. The position offered creative freedom, decent pay, and, most appealingly, an apartment in the renovated loft above the gallery as part of the compensation package. A place to live that neither Brian nor I ever set foot in, she mused aloud. "That's actually tempting." Her mother smiled knowingly. "I thought it might be. The director is an old friend of your Aunt Susan. She mentioned your situation, and they're willing to interview you tomorrow if you're interested." "Tomorrow?" Ellie glanced down at her rumpled pajamas and unwashed hair. "I'm hardly interview ready." Hence the warning. You have 24 hours to remember how to be the capable, creative woman you've always been. Her mother stood, moving toward the door. "And Ellie? The wedding may have been a disaster, but your handling of it was masterful. If you can manage that crisis with such grace under pressure, you can certainly run art gallery events. After her mother left, Ellie reread the job listing, feeling the first stirrings of genuine interest. The position required exactly the skills she had once prided herself on: organization, creativity, social networking, and grace under pressure. She reached for her laptop, opening it for the first time in days. Her email inbox was flooded with messages of concern and support, but one subject line caught her attention. Your wedding story has gone viral. The email contained links to several social media posts describing her wedding confrontation, each with thousands of shares. Someone, likely one of Brian's business associates, had shared the story online, and it had resonated widely. Comments praised her composure and courage, with many women sharing their own stories of discovering betrayal just in time. Far from feeling exposed, Ellie felt strangely validated. Her private pain had somehow transformed into a public reminder of the importance of self-respect and dignity. She wasn't just a jilted bride. She was someone who had refused to compromise her worth. With renewed energy, she closed the laptop and headed for the shower. The gallery interview suddenly felt like more than just a job opportunity. It was a chance to rebuild on her own terms. The FI. Next morning, as Ellie carefully applied makeup for the first time since the wedding day, she studied her reflection. The sadness hadn't disappeared from her eyes, but it was tempered now with determination. She selected a sleek blue dress from her suitcase, one Brian had always claimed was too bold for professional settings, and added simple silver jewelry. As she descended the stairs, her father looked up from his newspaper and smiled broadly. "There she is," he said simply, pride evident in his voice. Ellie returned his smile, feeling the weight of the past week beginning to lift. "Yes," she agreed. "Here I am." 3 months after her wedding day revelation, Ellie sipped champagne beneath the soaring ceiling of the Simpson Art Gallery. Around her, elegantly dressed patrons admired the new exhibition she had spent weeks arranging, a collection of contemporary sculptures exploring themes of reinvention and resilience. "Smashing success," declared Vivian Simpson, the gallery's 70-year-old owner, appearing at Ellie's elbow. "The Hernandez installation has already sold. Red dot going up as we speak." Ellie smiled, genuine satisfaction warming her. "That's wonderful. He's such a talented artist." "And you're a talented curator," Vivian countered, eyes twinkling behind cat-eye glasses. "Don't think I haven't noticed how you arranged the pieces to create a narrative journey. Attendance is up 30% since you joined us." "Just doing my job," Ellie demurred, though pride blossomed at the recognition. "Speaking of which," Vivian continued, "there's someone here asking specifically for you. A rather handsome someone, I might add." She gestured discreetly toward a man examining a twisted metal sculpture near the west wall. Ellie tensed momentarily, irrationally fearing it might be Brian. She hadn't seen or spoken to him since the wedding day, though she'd heard through mutual friends that he'd relocated to the company's Seattle office following the scandal. But the man by the sculpture wasn't Brian. As he turned, Ellie recognized Thomas Reeves, who had been 2 years ahead of her in college. They had worked together on several campus events, developing an easy friendship that had faded after graduation. "I should circulate," Vivian said with a knowing smile. "Those donors in the corner look like they need attention." Before Ellie could respond, Vivian had glided away, leaving her to approach Thomas alone. He noticed her immediately, his face brightening with recognition. "Ellie Mason," he greeted warmly. "I hoped you'd be here tonight." "Thomas," she responded, genuine pleasure in her voice. "It's been, what, 6 years?" "Almost 7. His eyes crinkled when he smiled, just as she remembered. "I've been following your work here. This exhibition is extraordinary." "You follow gallery events?" she asked skeptically. Thomas laughed, the sound refreshingly genuine. Not typically, no. But when I saw your name attached to this one, I made an exception. A flutter of nervousness surprised Ellie. She had deliberately avoided dating since the wedding disaster, focusing instead on rebuilding her career and settling into her gallery apartment. The idea of romantic interest from anyone felt simultaneously appealing and terrifying. "How did you even know I was working here?" she asked. Thomas hesitated. "This might sound strange, but I read about what happened at your wedding. It was making rounds in creative circles. This bride who stood up for herself in such a powerful way. When I realized it was you, I wasn't surprised at all. You always had that strength." Ellie blinked rapidly, unsure how to respond. "Well, having your heartbreak go viral wasn't exactly in my 5-year plan." "I can imagine not." His expression softened with genuine empathy. "For what it's worth, I thought you handled an impossible situation with remarkable grace." "Thank you." She was surprised by how much his approval meant. "So what brings you to Hartford? Last I heard, you were working with a design firm in Chicago." "I was. Now I'm starting my own studio here. Architectural visualization, helping clients see spaces before they exist." His enthusiasm was evident. "Actually, that's partly why I came tonight. We're designing a cultural center downtown and drawing inspiration from contemporary sculpture." Their conversation flowed easily after that, shifting between art, architecture, and memories of university days. Thomas mentioned his recent divorce with refreshing candor. No elaborate deceptions, just two people who had grown in different directions and had the maturity to acknowledge it. As the evening progressed, they migrated from exhibit to exhibit, losing track of time until Vivian began tactfully shepherding the last lingering patrons toward the exit. "I should help with closing up," Ellie said regretfully. Thomas nodded. "Of course." He hesitated before adding, "I'd love to continue our conversation sometime. Perhaps dinner?" The invitation hung between them. A year ago, Ellie would have readily accepted. Now, caution tempered her response. "Thomas, I should be honest. I'm still processing everything that happened. Dating isn't really something I'm ready for." Rather than appearing disappointed, Thomas seemed to appreciate her candor. "I understand completely. How about this? Not dating, just two old friends, reconnecting over coffee, no pressure, no expectations." The distinction felt important somehow. "Coffee I can do," she agreed with a small smile. Later that night, after the gallery had emptied and the lights dimmed to security levels, Ellie climbed the spiral staircase to her loft apartment. The space had become a true sanctuary over the past months, exposed brick walls displaying artwork borrowed from the gallery, tall windows overlooking the city park, and not a single reminder of her life with Brian. She kicked off her heels and settled onto the window seat, watching moonlight filter through the trees below. The evening replayed in her mind, the successful exhibition, Vivian's praise, and most unexpectedly, the easy connection with Thomas. Her phone chimed with a text message. "Thomas, great seeing you tonight. Coffee tomorrow at Westside Brew? Say, 11 a.m.? Ellie smiled at his directness. No games, no hidden agendas, just simple, straightforward interest. She typed her reply, 11 works. Looking forward to it. As she set down her phone, Ellie realized with sudden clarity that she genuinely was looking forward to it, not because Thomas represented some romantic possibility, but because for the first time since the wedding day disaster, she felt curious about what might come next, rather than anxious. The moon cast silver light across her apartment, illuminating the life she had built from the ashes of public humiliation. It wasn't the future she had once planned, but looking around at what she had created independently, Ellie realized with quiet satisfaction that perhaps it was better. 1 year to the day after her wedding, that wasn't. Ellie stood on the rooftop terrace of the Simpson Gallery, surveying the transformation around her. String lights twinkled overhead, illuminating clusters of guests enjoying the anniversary exhibition. She had curated Resilience, Art from the Ruins. The show featured works exploring personal and collective recovery, each piece telling a story of survival and renewal. Critics had already praised it as unflinchingly honest and a celebration of human fortitude. What none of the reviews mentioned was how deeply personal the theme was to Ellie herself. "There you are," came Thomas's voice from behind her. He approached with 2 flutes of champagne, offering one to her. "Hiding from your own success?" Ellie accepted the glass with a smile. "Just taking a moment to breathe. It's been a whirlwind." "That it has." Thomas clinked his glass gently against hers. "To new beginnings." Their friendship had evolved slowly over the past 9 months, coffee dates gradually transitioning to dinners, museum visits, and eventually, tentative kisses. Thomas had respected her need for space, never rushing or pressuring, allowing trust to build naturally between them. "Hard to believe it's been a year," Ellie mused, gazing out over the city lights. "Sometimes it feels like a lifetime ago. Other times it still stings," Thomas finished for her, understanding in his eyes. She nodded gratefully. "Exactly. But not in the way I expected. I don't miss Brian. Haven't for months now. I miss the certainty I once had. The belief that I could plan my life so perfectly. And yet look what happened when those plans fell apart." Thomas gestured to the gallery below them. "You found your way back to what you love. You've built something meaningful." The truth of his words settled comfortably around her. The past year had been challenging but transformative. The viral story of her wedding day confrontation had eventually faded from social media, but its impact on her life remained profound. She had discovered strengths she never knew she possessed and rebuilt her life piece by carefully considered piece. "Ellie," Maya's voice called from the stairwell entrance. "There you are. Vivian's looking for you. The mayor just arrived and wants to meet the curator." Ellie straightened her shoulders, smoothing down the emerald green dress she had chosen specifically for tonight, a color she would never have worn during her time with Brian. "Duty calls," she said with a wink to Thomas. He squeezed her hand. Gently. "Go dazzle them. I'll be here." The simple promise, "I'll be here," carried weight without feeling like a burden. Thomas had become a steady presence in her life, supportive without being possessive, caring without controlling. The contrast with her previous relationship couldn't have been starker. Downstairs, the gallery hummed with conversation and appreciation. Ellie moved through the crowd with practiced ease, answering questions about the exhibition and introducing artists to potential buyers. Vivian beamed with pride as she presented Ellie to the mayor and his entourage. "Ms. Mason has transformed." "Our humble gallery," Vivian declared. "Attendance has doubled under her direction, and this exhibition is already breaking records." Ellie accepted the compliments graciously, still somewhat surprised by how comfortable she had become with recognition. A year ago, she had preferred to remain in Brian's shadow, allowing his career and accomplishments to take center stage. Now she stood confidently in her own light. As the evening progressed, Ellie found herself near the refreshment table, pausing for a momentary break. A familiar figure approached hesitantly from the periphery. Lindsay, the woman who had unknowingly shared Brian with her. They had exchanged occasional messages in the months following the wedding disaster, but hadn't seen each other in person, until now. "Your invitation surprised me," Lindsay admitted, fidgeting with her clutch. "But I wanted to come. The exhibition is incredible." "Thank you," Ellie replied, genuinely pleased to see her. "How have you been?" "Good, actually. Started teaching art at the community college. It's what I always wanted to do before." She trailed off awkwardly. "Before Brian convinced you to put your dreams on hold?" Ellie supplied with knowing sympathy. Lindsay's relieved laugh confirmed the shared experience. "Exactly. He had such a way of making his priorities seem like the only logical path. They exchanged knowing glances, the awkwardness between them dissolving into something approaching camaraderie. Both had escaped the same manipulative relationship and found their way back to their authentic selves. "Thank you for including my piece in the exhibition," Lindsay said more seriously. "It meant a lot, especially given our history." Ellie nodded toward the small mixed-media artwork Lindsay had submitted, a piece titled Parallel Lives, that subtly explored themes of deception and discovered truth. "It deserved to be included. Your talent speaks for itself." As Lindsay moved on to examine other exhibits, Ellie felt a sense of closure that had eluded her until now. The woman she had once viewed as the other woman had become, somewhat improbably, a symbol of shared resilience. Later, as the event wound down and the last guest departed, Ellie found herself again on the rooftop terrace with Thomas. The city had grown quieter below them, the late-night tranquility a stark contrast to the buzzing energy of the gallery event. "Penny for your thoughts," Thomas offered, draping his jacket around her shoulders against the night chill. "I was just thinking about how differently this day could have gone," she admitted. "In another timeline, today would have been my first wedding anniversary." Thomas nodded thoughtfully. "Do you ever regret how things unfolded?" "Not the breakup," he clarified quickly. "But the public nature of it?" Ellie considered the question carefully. "I used to. The humiliation felt overwhelming at first. But now?" She shook her head. "That moment forced me to find my voice in a way nothing else could have. I'm not glad it happened, but I'm grateful for who I've become because of it." She turned to face him fully, taking in the features that had become beloved over months of patient courtship. "A year ago today, I thought my life was ending. I couldn't imagine a future beyond the devastation." "And now?" Thomas asked softly. "Now I know better." Ellie smiled, the last traces of old wounds finally healed. "That wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of something much more authentic." Thomas pulled her gently closer. "To authenticity, then." As they stood together beneath the vast night sky, Ellie thought about the unexpected journey of the past year, from the chapel where her world had shattered to this rooftop, where she stood whole again, stronger at the broken places. The viral story of her wedding day confrontation had faded from public memory, but its impact had permanently altered her path. That moment of crisis, when she had found the courage to speak her truth despite the cost, had become the foundation upon which she had rebuilt her life, not according to anyone else's expectations, but true to her own heart. Nestled in Thomas's embrace, watching the city she had rediscovered spread out before them, Ellie felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Not the frantic excitement of romance or the comfortable complacency of settling, but the quiet certainty of being exactly where she was meant to be. The future stretched before her, not meticulously planned and predictable as she once would have preferred, but open with possibility. And for the first time, that uncertainty felt not like a threat, but a promise. "What are you smiling about?" Thomas asked, noticing her expression. Ellie leaned her head against his shoulder, her answer simple but profound in its truth. "Tomorrow."